years. Magic Financing is dedicated to customer satisfaction. If you've got credit issues, they have the answer. No matter what your profile is, they can help. They work with people who have fair, bad, or just terrible credit, repayment history, as well as people who have no money down. That's right, no money down. They're located at 6385 North Federal Boulevard with a great auto inventory. Give them a call at 303-298-1155. That's Magic Financing. Features Margot the Magician. They're open Monday through Friday till 8 and Saturdays till 7. Check them out. That's Magic Financing. Call them today at 303-298-1155. Tell them you heard about it here at KUHSDenver.com. Also,
yes, call magicfinancing.com. If you need a new or used car, call them. Talk to Maurizio. He's Mongo the Magician, a good dear friend of mine. They have been sponsoring the council here for me for a couple of years now. Go to them, they'll take care of you. Tell them Charlie sent you. And welcome everybody to the council. I'm your host, Charlie Picciello, and we have a fantastic guest here with us today. We are going to talk about so many different things. Tapping into a deeper understanding about why we're here and how to be able to use art to connect to and heal ourselves, and what are some of the deeper purposes of our lives, and all these things we're going to talk about today. But first, I want to make sure that you know some things that are happening that might be very, very important to you that are listening to us here today. If you need health insurance coverage for 2021, no matter where you live or how you prefer to enroll, Connect for Health Colorado is here to help you find the best plan for your medical needs and budget. January 15 is the last day to sign up for 2021 coverage, and only through Connect for Health Colorado can you apply for financial help to lower costs, protect your health, your finances, and your family in 2021 with a high quality and affordable health plan. Visit connectforhealthco.com or call 855-752-6749. Again, that's 855-752-6749. And I just want to do a quick shout out to KUHS. We are broadcasting live here in Denver, Colorado. Broadcasting not only here in this beautiful state, the snowy, cold day today, but it is a little bit cold. But it's we broadcast all across the nation and all around the world. We're the number 3 in the country in streaming services, and we are touching lives in so many different countries, in Brazil, in Argentina, in Uruguay, in Costa Rica, in Germany, in Italy, in Russia, in Iran, in the Middle East, and in so many places that people tuning in, Asia, India as well. We thank you each and every day for every time we're on. We just thank you for tuning into the council and allowing us to share some time with you during these very difficult and challenging times. But we have resources in us that can help us to get through and to be able to tap into those things, and learning how to do that is such a critical thing when we're at a transitional juncture. I really believe we're at a transformational moment in time, and that's why we're seeing this huge separation that seems to be happening. We're going through this alchemy that's occurring on an individual level, on our family and tribal levels, and our collective level as well. And it's not easy. It's not easy sometimes to be able to move through these challenges and to not get caught up in the illusions that occur, or being drawn into some of the conflict, and remember to staying centered and balanced in yourself. But we're going to talk a little bit with our guest today about just that, about how we can move into the arts and how to move into that sacred space within us to be able to connect to those deeper truths that will help us to move through this time together. I'm so excited to have you on. Her name is Natalie Ventimiglia. I'm Italian and I should know this. Natalie Ventimiglia. She's an artist and galactic guru behind the Art Stands By Me movement, which uses creativity to awaken creativity. She's figured out how to awaken herself in the illusion of separation and is on a mission to help others to do the same. She reminds us that the key is to remember that you forgot something. You forgot who you are. And she is a gateway to remember you are part of the whole, a master among masters. And once this concept is integrated, there's no limits. And her current mission is to stand not only with the light, but with the integration of all aspects of self in order to move the collective into oneness through the neutralizing effects of unconditional love. Her website is www.natalieventimiglia.com. That's NatalieVentimiglia.com. That's a mouthful.
You can go to artstandsbyme.com. It's the same website. It's
go,
easier.
Is it
yeah.
Artstandsbyme.com.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the show.
Thank
Natalie.
you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
It's such a thrill to finally meet you. You know, we were introduced to, through a friend of ours who's watching the show, and they're both watching, I'm sure. And but I would love for you to be able to, just share a little bit more about your background and where you grew up and why this passion for the work that you do.
Well, I grew up in Michigan in a relatively small town called Saginaw. And, the way I look at it is like, what an amazing place to practice giving and receiving unconditional love. It's like, it's the stage before the stage, because I had so many friends, like still that I talk to, and I'm so, they're so important to me, today, that were fostered in this small town. And some of the things that we were able to do, because we had, I went to Catholic school, because we had a small Catholic school. And I'm trying to think, you said, where did this love of art come from? And I believe it was first started when I was in this competition called Academic Track that we did. And so we were able to compete with other schools in the 7th and 8th grade in all different kinds of areas. We did choir, and we sang songs, and we did improv, and just really fun, stuff that in the schools took it very seriously. And they taught us how to do these things. They taught us how to sing. They taught us how to do, these improv and speeches, and it was really fun. And so I volunteered for the art one. And so an artist came in and taught us how to draw. And, a group of us that showed an interest, and I learned pastels. And I think it's really funny now, because when we were drawing these, they were usually, still lifes, and we would draw them from all these different perspectives, right? So no two of these were going to be the same, because you're looking at it from here, and I'm across the table looking at it from there, but we're all drawing the same thing, and we're all seeing, something different. And I remember that one time I didn't follow the rules, and I went outside the page, or like the boundary. So my subject matter wasn't inside.
It wasn't inside the little square.
It wasn't inside.
Right.
Yeah, it was just a piece of paper that we were all given. And once you get going, and the perspective needs to be accurate. And by the time I got to the top piece of the flower, it was off the page. And I was like, oh, and I knew I was going to disqualify myself. And I wasn't following the parameters of the competition. And I just remember being just distraught. It was just the most important thing to me. Why was this so important? And it was shocking to me, because I'd done sports and I'd done all these other things, but this art competition was just so incredibly important. And then as I went through school, I went to school for biochemistry, and I was really into the sciences, and then I pursued careers in science-based things, or technology, and dot-com era, and telecom, and that type of thing. And it was exciting to me to do that. But when it came down to it, when I really thought, like, is this important enough? Like, is this worth my time? And it wasn't. There was a moment, I'm like, yeah, I know I'm helping people get faster internet access, and that's important, but is it the best I can do? Is this the best I can do? And then art schools seemed to be, something better. It seemed to be more important than anything. Like, bringing beauty into the world seemed to be the most important thing.
Yeah, no,
You know?
and I understand. For me,
Yeah.
from my perspective, because I had similar to what you were going through, is that I went into the military. Right, when I was very young, I was in the arts and I was performing and I was doing all kinds of singing and dancing with the Colorado Children's Chorale. We were touring the country and
Yeah.
doing that. And then I went into the military, which was very different. It was that you're not really expressing yourself. You're not really. That's not the design of it. That's not the purpose of it. And then I switched over when I got done out of the military. I went into the theater arts. That creativity just seemed like something outside of wanted to come, like
Yeah.
something wanted to be birthed, wanted to come out. That I was for so long I'd been holding back the desire to express. And it sounds like that's something that
And it is.
You
And
experienced too.
it's not something, I've had gallery owners and friends and other people that it just look, they're like, oh, it's not an easy path.
Yeah.
Getting her out there, being super raw, exposing the true self, because you cannot separate the art from the artist. Like,
You can't.
And so when you put that out there, you're literally just like opening your soul up for all these people to critique and oh, I don't like that piece. And you're like, yeah. My piece doesn't like you. You know what I mean? You just really have to get to this place as an artist that you're your own critic, and that's the only critic that matters.
Mm-hmm.
And if you love it, somehow people seem to think that they can't love their own work. And I'm like, if I'm not loving that piece that's on the wall, then
Yeah.
I'm not done with it.
Was there a moment in time for you where you were able to make that leap?
Oh, it doesn't come.
It doesn't come
no,
easy,
no,
right?
it doesn't, no.
It's like
No.
before you could really stand in that kind of truth.
Yeah, and there was one time, and I was like, someone said to me like, "God, I love that piece." It was hanging up in my home studio, and I was like, "Yeah, me too." And they looked at me like I wasn't supposed to like it, like I wasn't supposed to give that response.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, if I don't like it, how do I expect you to?" And it's a thing. It's like if you don't love yourself, if you're not all in on yourself, then how can you expect anybody else to do that for you? And that lesson doesn't come just aha moment. I mean, for me, it didn't. Maybe some people it did. Hopefully, it works for you right now.
Some of you
Yeah, I hope that you get this right now. Because once I realized that, I was like, oh, I got to double down on me. And that's when I get other people to double down on me. Because they know I'm not going to back out on me,
Yeah.
And so when you get there, then you're just like, oh, now what else can I do? What else can I do? What's next? What's next? What's next? And then spreading joy and spreading love and spreading, this beauty through glass. And to me, it's just like the most versatile, the most amazing material that is out there, that's in every aspect of the world, from technology. Like every innovation has come with glass. I mean, like telescopes and microscopes and seeing glasses and fiber optics and your phone. I mean, glass is everywhere. And I had this kind of download that I had when I was, I don't know, maybe a couple years ago, and I saw it all. I was like, oh wow, glass is involved in everything, and it will be involved in the spiritual awakening as well.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really sure what that meant at the time, but over time, I figured it out.
Right.
I figured it out through this process of this reflection of glass, because it can hold a vibration and it can hold this energy and then reflect it back.
Yeah.
Like a prism, like something goes through it and it's alchemized, and then I can reflect that back into the space. And I realized that's what I was doing, and I was like, well, no wonder I picked glass.
Well, it's beautiful. I think your pieces are they're stunning. I mean, they're really breathtaking pieces. And each of them has like a message or a movement or something that was divinely inspired for you to be able to put these pieces together. But I would love to talk just a little bit, because you speak about, on one of your videos on the website, about that you had a meeting with a Native American woman who was doing glass bead work, and it was really inspirational for you in understanding how to communicate your work and your spirit through your glass work, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So I was in high school, and I had, I was, as much as I love my little hometown, the second I knew that it was available for me to leave and explore the world in a new way, I was in. I wanted to go, any opportunity I could go to see what else was out there, I was taking it. So we had, my church basically had, we were going to do outreach with these American Indians in Montana. And I wanted to go. And I remember it was super inexpensive. It was like $40 or something. I mean, you know, not for real. It was, and we were only allowed to bring so much money. So there's a maximum amount. So there was no separation between people that had more funds and people that didn't, you know? So we all had the same amount of spending money. We all were there. We were all equal playing field. And we were just going to go to Montana. And one of the things that they had arranged for us to do, and I just thought it was really funny because I wanted to go and learn from them, and we were supposed to go teach these kids Bible study, which I just thought was just ironic, you know, because it was really, anyway, it was really, I don't really want to get into that, but, you know, it was, you know, it was this commonality that we were all just trying to learn something new. We were trying to learn from each other and see what we had. And so we had gone to see this woman who was doing this incredible beadwork. And I walked in, and it was like I walked into a different dimension when I walked into her studio. And it was just so beautiful. And these tiny little beads, I mean, they're glass, but she wasn't doing with glass what I was doing, you know, with what I will eventually do with glass. But she's, you know, beading them and stringing it, and I don't even know what she was doing, but it was gorgeous. And it's these intricate designs, and I just had so many questions. I wanted to know everything about it, and what she was doing, and how she had so much patience, and she was very gracious, and she told me all about the process, and she just said, you know, when I'm making this work, I think about the person who's going to resonate with this, who's going to be attracted, you know, to this piece, and I'm going to put so much love into it that when they see it, they're not even going to know why they love it. They're just going to love it because it's the love, you know. It's not even, of course, the design is beautiful, and the aesthetic is, to me, was more like a, you know, I just got back from Joe Dispenza, so I want to say kaleidoscope, but it is, you know, like a mandala. It is, you know, for the patterns they're symmetrical, beautiful symmetry. And so, you know, I was just drawn to them. And then when she told me what she did, that they're holding space in someone's house, just a beacon of love, no matter what else goes on in that room, there's always going to be the love that she put into this piece that's going to also be there.
Beautiful. That is so beautiful.
And I'm like, I'm doing that. I'm doing that. You know, like, that was it. I'm like, I'm going to figure that out. I'm going to do that. And it took me a long time, you know, because at the time I wasn't doing art. I mean, I was doing it as, you know, no, I wasn't even taking it. I was taking choir and stuff. So I was thinking, why was I taking art? I don't know. I was doing other things artistically that were fulfilling that void, but I knew that artistic, you know, need. But I knew that I would need that. And then not too long ago, I guess it was about 1.5 years ago, I was at a widespread painting concert and at Red Rocks, which is, you know, one of my happy places. And I saw her again, and it wasn't her, it was somebody else. It was another woman who I just like snapped into a moment, and she was wearing like an Indian, a shirt that had like an Indian flair to it. And I looked at her, and I was like, I started crying, tears streaming down my face, and I could cry, seriously, I could start crying right now thinking about it, it's so emotional. And I was like, it's you, it's you. And it was a young girl that I happened to run into, and I instantly wanted to be with these people. I'd gone to this concert with like 12 dudes, because none of my girlfriends were really into going. I don't know, it just all worked out that way. And then there was these 3 girls sitting in front of us. And they're looking back at me, and I'm looking back at them, and I was just like, I'm supposed to be with you guys. And they knew it, too. And they, you know, all of a sudden we were instant fast friends. And I was like, where you guys been? You know, like, good thing we all met up here. Like, you got the memo. Good job, you know, for listening. Because I listened, too, and we're here. And then I saw her as this Indian woman, and I was just like, wow, this place is getting crazy.
Isn't it amazing when you start to get into sync with your own life? When you start following your calling, when you start following that sense of whatever that is that your soul is driving you towards, and you're no longer resisting it, and you're picking up on all those little clues along the way, the little, you know, I'd say breadcrumbs, but I think that's a way for people to understand it, metaphorically. And you just start following that path, and you're open to it, and you're available, and you have those kinds of transcendent experiences like you had with the Native American woman that gave you this insight to a future that you were going to have that you didn't know you were going to have in that moment.
No idea.
Which I think is so powerful. I mean, when I was listening to that on your site, I was like, wow, that is so fascinating. And at the time, I'm sure you didn't even know that was what was going to happen. But the message that you got was how she put her love into her work.
And it's now I can actually see it intuitively. Like I have opened up so much intuitive ability through all this work, and finding of oneself and self-actualization, and realizing there's nothing to be afraid of when you talk about the mystical. And in the beginning there was something to be afraid of, because at times I thought I would lose my friends and lose my kids, and people thought I was nuts, and still people think I'm really crazy. So don't I know that. But then it was just like, what world of crazy do I want to live in? This reality tunnel of crazy that you're living in, which I can't live in, because once you tap into these things, you cannot know what you know.
Yeah.
You can't go back. And then I had to start playing this game with myself. It was like, real, not real, real, not real. I'm like, okay, did I meet this Indian woman? Yes, that was real. Did I, when I see her work in the room, I could see it radiating. I could literally see it, being brighter than the rest of the thing in there. Okay, real, not real, real. That happened, Did I meet her again at a Red Rocks? Okay, that one's questionable. I get it. That's a little shaky, but for me, it was real. Like she was talking to me. I saw it. And then when you follow those breadcrumbs, then I start thinking about this place as a game.
Yeah.
What's my next clue?
Yeah.
And then then my buddy Mike calls me up while I'm in Mexico last week. Hey, a friend of mine wants you to be on the radio. I'm like, yeah, that's my next clue. That's it. You just follow. And sometimes you get led into some distraction, like into I like to call, like, if you're going down the Upaya path, this river of your life, you get into like a little jetty, and you get a detour, because you just quite haven't learned the lesson that's in there.
Yep.
And you get distracted, and you're like, whoa, then you pop out one day, you're like, whoa, that was a rough one, like that was the thing, that was a hard lesson to learn, and you kind of just find the next clues through there, and you look back on that, and you know what you were supposed to learn. And if you can do that, and you see this place as a game, it becomes really fun.
It can be a lot of fun, and it can be, when you see it as an effort for us to evolve and to grow and to change and to transform, then it becomes something that is, we don't necessarily look at the bad things that happen to us as necessarily bad. Yes, when you're going through it, it's extraordinarily painful. I'm not denying that. And of course, in and a lot of the people that I work with and talk to and who listen to the show, they deal with a lot of pain. They're dealing with a lot of trauma, a lot of child abuse and war trauma, rape, domestic violence, refugee crisis, a lot of different things. And that's not to minimize those. That's not it. But we wanted to be able to learn how to utilize the forces around us to create something new, to help us to transform our trauma into something beautiful. And art allows us to do that, allows us to be able to, like you say, art stands by me. Art, that's an expression of my soul, it's an expression of who I am and what I've gone through and all these things. And we can transform that darkness into something beautiful. And
without a doubt. I mean, so through the process that I had, uncovered, and with a lot of help, I've hired some coaches and branding coaches, and one branding coach in particular really helped me narrow in on the message. And it really was, and this is why I love this woman, is because she didn't care what my message was. She didn't question, whether or not I could do this work, or whether or not I could really change the vibration of a room with art, or if I could create a gateway or a portal through my art. And she's like, okay, great, if that's what you're doing, let's just figure it out, And I was like, oh, okay, she believes me, And then you start attracting more people that believe you, and more people that think it's possible, and more people, and then I started seeing it in my own work, and then I saw people in my visions having these mass awakenings in front of my art, and then it wasn't really happening. No one was really having these awakenings, but then I realized that I did. Like, I had an awakening in front of my art, and I had seen a couple of other people have these mystical moments, and I'm like, I just need to hold space. I just need to hold space for people to be able to be in an environment that is outside of their normal fight or flight environment,
Right.
which allows them to see themselves from another perspective. And there's a lot of art out there that will talk about, you know, the plight, you know, those remind you of what we're doing. And so, like, I don't know, art that has war in it, or art that has, you know, women that are torn and broken down. It's like, we already know that, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, that's just not my personal focus. It's like, I don't care how we got here. I could care less about all of that, all the wars, all the trauma, all the things that we've been doing for, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of years. I'm only interested in the correction of that. What do we do from here? Now we're already in the situation.
That's great.
Now what? You know, what can we do from this moment on? And that is really the Upaya path. We talk a lot about that in the circles that I run in. And the Upaya path would be like, if you're in a golf course and you're trying to hit a putt, and your intuitive, you know, mind would be like, I just hit it straight. I'll just hit it right from here, as straight as I can into that hole. You know, Bob Barker, you know, like that was what you would do with The Price is Right. You know, you just, if you can hit it straight, you're winning that $1,000, all's well, you know. But in the game of life, there isn't straight. It's not a flat ground, you know.
Not in my experience.
Right?
No, that's true.
So someone who knows how to read the course,
Yeah.
someone who's been on that course before, who's been there before you, might say, like a caddy, you know, hit it here, hit it way left. I promise you, it's going to come back, and you're like, and your brain doesn't compute that, because even if it's, you know, if it's super far away and the read is far, and you hit it a little bit, you know, short of that, because you just can't conceive that that's the path, like that's the way, you know. But
it can be. It's got to be this way.
Right, and you don't hit the. I told you to hit it way out here, and you didn't. You hit it halfway, and you're like, but my brain just wouldn't let me do that. And so over time, you keep practicing, and you realize, wow, that was the path, the shortest possible version to where I'm going. And then I started to realize there's one more component to this, which is that it's with the resources that you currently have. So there is no, like, from the moment that every listener is in right now, the next step is ready for you right now, like with what you already have, with the resources currently available to you. And once I learned that lesson, which is something that really they dig home. I just got back, like I said, from this Joe Dispenza meditation retreat.
Which we love Joe Dispenza on the show. We promote all of his work. We actually had I did a whole show where I was explaining it just on this workshop with Joe Dispenza, and I was just so enamored by, you know, the work and understanding the quantum field and how our thoughts and emotions and feelings can affect the field. And that, you know, by getting into that space, into that place where we can affect the quantum field in a way that turns us into more possibilities and outcomes that we ourselves get to influence, we ourselves can create.
Right.
As long as we're not continuing to repeat the old story again.
Right. You're co-creating now.
Yeah.
In love, you know, Joe will say, like, I'll meet you in love, which is really like, I'll meet you in the quantum, which is where all things are possible, you know, where all things, where there's a timeline where you're already through all of this, where there's a timeline already there that you have forgotten all the trauma that you've ever experienced. And not only have you forgotten it because you've transcended it. It's no longer your story. It just isn't you anymore. It's the old you. And the new you, you're like, oh, that's the me I'm supposed to be. And then you just step into that. So when you understand that this is all available to you without a fight, without a struggle. And I've been struggling for years to try and get the brand out there and to get people. I've advertised and done this and been in that and spent so much money. And then when you realize that, oh, I don't have to do any of that. Like, it's available to me. It's all right here. The next step is with the resources I currently have. And I was advertising for my class, right? And the class is offered as a donation-based class. And I'm actually started going, you know, into a financial situation that wasn't great for me because I was advertising a class that I was giving away for free. You know, it was costing me money. And I thought, I was like, what am I doing? You know, this is crazy. Like,
we forget to value what we have to offer. You know, we forget to value that. We were like, we just want to give it away for free, and here it is. And we forget that there needs to be some reciprocity.
Right, and it's just like the take care of yourself first. And the nuances of altruism are that, and I like to say, like, service. A lot of spiritual teachers and, you know, people say service to others, service to others. Well, I like to say service to all, or, you know, because I'm included in that. Like, service to all is including me.
That's right.
And if you don't if you give away so much, then you have nothing left, and then you really do feel like you've been abandoned by all of the things. You're like, how is it that I'm giving so much and I'm not getting anything back?
Oh God, yeah.
That's a big problem for so many
of us.
people that really
Yes.
want to do the work, and they
Yeah.
really want to make change, and they really want to help people. And then once you realize, you're like, oh, I am all things. Like I am the universe. I am a God. And so are you. Like it's the God complex starts when you think that you are Jesus and you are the only God.
You're Buddha,
Yeah.
you're Krishna, your Mother Mary, well, but we're all the. It's in Luke something. I think it was Luke 17 or whatever it is. It says, in that one, he's talking about turn within because the kingdom of God is within you.
Yeah, it is not outside
It's
of you.
not outside of you. Don't look outside. Look inside. And I think because we moved in to the nuclear age after World War
Yes,
II,
yes.
it forced us. We created something that we couldn't outrun anymore. So it forced all of us to start looking inward. And so you had this huge explosion in the '60s. This spiritual consciousness and openness, and all these different movements. Vatican II happened. The Dalai Lama left Tibet. I mean, it was East meets West, West meets East. And so now all this turning inward, and people were discovering, wow, there's a whole inner landscape here that we didn't know anything about. And fast forward to where we are today, now we have the science that backs up what they were talking about, all these mystical teachers. And now there's a quantum field that they can measure, that they can see, that they can test, that they can, sample, and we can all tap into. And so learning how to be able to do that is part of the process that we're in right now.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I've seen this before, and I can snap into these things in meditation, and I'll see it, from above. And you talk about this nuclear age, and oh, how horrible that was. But when I look at it, I see, wow, that's so dark. That has sprung us so far into the light.
Yes.
And that is the fuel
Yes.
in the world of duality.
Yes.
In the third dimension, the darkness is the fuel for the light, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And when you really get that, like when you really understand that, then you're like, oh, now I know why that guy was such a jerk to me. Now I understand, what a blessing for that to have happened, because now I understand that getting into a place of such darkness allowed me to spring myself into such light. And that is the third dimension, that is duality. And right now we're finding out that people can't really understand collective consciousness when they don't see someone from the other side of the world. But now that we have, the world is so much smaller now because of the technology, because of Wi-Fi, because of what we're doing right now. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this would have been virtually impossible 10 years ago,
Right.
where we could connect each other and talk to people right now that are tuning in, that are around the world, that are on the other side of the globe.
Right.
I mean, it's immediate, instantaneous communication.
And so the way that this works, and the way that it's evolved from, say, radio or TV, is how you can understand that you can be your own, transducer of information. And so you can snap onto whatever reality tunnel or whatever radio station you want. So right now, on another radio station, they're playing country, and they're jamming out and doing whatever, talking about NPR, you know what I mean? Like, Terry Gross is somewhere talking to somebody else, and that's just another reality tunnel that someone else is living in. But all of us right now are living in this one. And guess what? We get to choose. No matter what reality tunnel you start your life in, the beauty of free will, which people, question whether there is free will or not. And those are some valid topics and really good conversations. But ultimately, when you can change your reality tunnel if you choose to. There is a timeline for that, for you to go and pick a new one. And going, and finding this research and finding people like Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza and Nassim Haramein and all the stuff that they're doing in Gaia, we're understanding that all these mystics and these people that we've read about and ancient aliens, and they knew something, that we didn't have forgotten. Right back to the mission. It's like, wait a minute, I forgot something, and somehow now within the last year or so, I've been able to spontaneously remember how to do things that I've never studied in this lifetime. And then I run into other people who are also doing it.
Right.
And they're saying, I don't know how I knew that, Natalie, but all of a sudden I just remembered, this huge scientific theory, and writing it down and doing work that is comparable to what researchers are doing in laboratories in colleges and universities, and they're like, how did you know this? And it's like, I don't know, I just remembered. And it's crazy because it's true. And then you start to bank these feelings, and you start to stack them, which we just talked about a bunch, stacking them, and not just from your own experiences, but finding others that have had similar experiences. And part of the reason that I went down to that conference was to find more people who thought like me, find more people that were living in my reality tunnel, or that, I was like living in a very small, like straw is how it felt. I felt like I was the only one that was in this tunnel. Yeah. And then I went down to this conference and I realized that there's a lot of people living in this tunnel, and a lot of people that, as the week went on, I started restoring my whole faith in humanity and starting restoring my faith in the divine masculine, and these men who are opening up and really wanting to be vulnerable and use their emotions and be strong and compassionate at the same time, and protect you with love, not protect you with might. And it was really just like looking around and seeing these men and seeing the people that were there and the passion that Joe has for the work, and then here we are too. I wanted people to know what's possible, and what we were able to do in this conference is we were able to join our energy together and remotely heal people that weren't even there. We were looking at pictures of people. So now you understand what Wi-Fi is like. You understand tuning into radio. You understand tuning into TV. So now all we've done is tuned into a frequency, which is this person. And now we've got all this energy, and you're focusing your energy on this person. And all of a sudden I could just see him. I'm like, oh, let's heal you, you know what I mean? And I could see him, and I'm like, we should get these rods out of your leg, and we should do this, and we should do that. And people around me are like, they see it too. Yes. They see this, this healing is happening, and we're doing this in this large group of people. There's a lot of us there, 1,000 people in this conference, in the middle of a pandemic. In the middle of it, And so I'm thinking to myself, when I booked this ticket, and I was talking to my ex-husband about it, and I'm about to go down with a bunch of people, and I'm thinking, Joe knows something that we don't know, because nobody loves Joe Dispenza's work more than Joe Dispenza. That's true. Right? Yeah. Nobody loves my artwork more than me. This is not true. Nobody loves my exactly. This show is your baby. You know what I mean? This show is my baby. Yep, and I love it. And you love it. Oh. And so it's afforded me so many incredible experiences and opportunities, and reach to touch people and touch their hearts, and to share what other people are doing and who they are, to give them a voice. So you would not jeopardize the show. No, right? No. And so Joe Dispenza would not jeopardize his research and his work. So we're thinking, he knows something I don't know. Why would he allow this to happen? Why is he not worried about all of this? And then as the course of the week went on, we found out, like he did tell us, that there are research that he is in the middle of conducting, where people who have been exposed, their blood has been exposed to COVID type laboratory COVID before the conference, and then they go through this conference and do these crazy meditations, and they talk to the divine, and they become the divine, and they feel the divine around them, not just in their own self but in everyone around them, and they tap into this frequency, this dimension that they didn't even know existed before, and they become, they live in the quantum, they become the quantum. And then they realize all things are possible. You become the wave. You just pick whatever reality you want, because it's available there. And then you bring it back into matter, because you chose to see it through this lens of I am all things, I am love. And then you come back and you're like, well, why would I want COVID? So I'm just not a vibrational match to that anymore. And then they put it into the laboratory, and they're finding that people are becoming they're immune, I guess. They're getting immunity from the exposure after the conference. So if you know this, that there's some other way that you could change your susceptibility to the frequency of the things that could hurt you, right? So now you're no longer you're like, why would I choose, if I get to choose my own reality with my thoughts,
Mhm.
why would I choose one that sucks? For
Exactly,
real.
for real. I mean, why would you want to choose one that causes you harm?
Well,
Right?
because you're conditioned to do
And we
that.
are conditioned to do that.
We are conditioned
Yep.
to do that. And my sister and I were watching this program the other day, Ink Wars. I
Mhm.
love using pop culture. This is really part of what I do in my class. Is I try to give like practical things that are in your life right now to show you the crumbs,
Yeah.
to show you the clues to our behavior. And I love, 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 love reality TV for this reason. So it's a show at Ink Wars, and they're doing tattoos on each other, and this guy wins this challenge.
Uh-huh.
And the challenge allows him to pick these other, they call them canvases, where they're people, you know? And they've got tattoos that they want to have covered up.
Mhm.
And I know a lot about this because I got a lot of tattoos. And so, and I've covered them up, I've gotten them removed, and so it was interesting, and I was relating.
Uh-huh.
So he won this challenge, so he got to pick first what tattoo, what canvas, what cover up would he want to do. And he picked the easiest one, because why wouldn't you,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Because he won the right to pick the easiest one. And then he does, and he makes this beautiful tattoo, and you can't see the other one underneath it at all. But you weren't going to, because it was faded and crappy to start
Mhm.
with.
Mhm.
So then the judging comes around, and the judges give him a hard time. Oh, you're such a good tattoo artist. I don't know why you wouldn't have challenged yourself and picked a harder one.
Wow.
And really, like they didn't give any good props to the fact that he made this beautiful tattoo. He won the challenge. Why not give yourself a minute? Because he's like, give yourself a break. Do the
Yeah.
easy one for a minute,
Yeah.
And then I realized in that moment, I was like, wow, we're conditioned to, to not give yourself that break. You know what I mean? And these judges didn't want to praise him because he picked the easy way.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with the easy way? Why can't I just win the lotto tomorrow and fund my mission? I mean, for real, like,
Exactly.
oh, you got to work for it.
Yeah.
You got to show people
Yeah.
that you worked really hard. I'm done working hard like that, and I don't want to do that. I want to take the easy way. I want to have fun. I want to have extra time.
Well, and that goes into the idea that life should be enjoyable. I mean, yeah, you're going to have your challenges, as we talked about, part of that journey that's going to help your soul to grow, but you also want to enjoy your life. You want to make it fun, make it exhilarating, make it exciting. But it's not so easy to get there. We've done a lot of work. Both you and I can tell, have done a lot of work. We've done we've faced a lot of our shadows. We faced a lot of our, darknesses, things that we had to, our personal demons that we've had to, and so we've come through a lot of that to the other side. So it is a journey, and it's a spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And so, when did your spiritual journey begin for you? When did you start moving in this direction? Because we're talking about a lot of things that now we understood, but it took a while to get there, right?
Well, I mean, I had a profound awakening, and it was in one moment. It was a day that I was in my studio, and it was exactly 4 years ago, and it was snowing, but it was the first snow of the season. Snow was coming down. Big, huge flakes, it was in November. And I had taken my kids to school, and I cleaned my kitchen, and I knew what was going to be for dinner, like that type of thing. Like, everything was settled, and I was in my studio, and I remember thinking, like, I get to make art all day today. Like, how grateful I was in that moment that I was able to make art. And I went into my studio, and I just started sketching, and then I had to move to, I was sketching so fast, I was like, pages. It was just like, I did a whole entire body of work. I sketched it all out. And I had been listening to Marissa Peer before that, and she had talked about, the biggest problem with humanity is that people don't think they're enough.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
And when I listened to this 1 hour program on her saying that, and then I was like, that's it. I don't think I'm enough. Like, that's it. That's it. So I did everything that she said to do. I put, in 1 hour, again, I didn't take her a class. I just listened to like a TED Talk type of thing. And then I did all those things. And so in that moment, I'm sketching, and I look up into this giant mirror I have in my house, and I thought, I'm enough. Like, I'm enough. I'm bawling, tears are streaming down my eyes. The day you realize that you're enough, that's a big day.
It's a huge day.
It's a big day. And then I saw myself in these big stages, I was giving speeches, and I was doing these huge installations in public spaces with my art, and I thought to myself, I was like, wow, that's what I'm supposed to be doing? Well, I better get on it. I didn't even know what I was going to be talking about. I had no idea. And I went to yoga, because that was like everything, like, I don't know what's going on, go to yoga. Like, the answers are yoga. And so I
love yoga. I've been practicing yoga for almost 20 years now.
Oh, yeah, okay, so you get it then.
I get it. Yep.
So I'm in yoga, and what I realize now is that I stepped into flow. Yeah. And I didn't even know what that word was before that, but I was in flow, because I get to yoga, and I'm putting my leg places I didn't even know I could. Like, I was doing poses I've never tried before. Right. And then at the time, I was really big into, I still do this, but at the time I would always thank the people around me for practicing next to me, because I was just so happy to be there. I had younger kids, and I didn't have a lot of help. I wasn't as free to just go whenever I wanted. So when I could schedule the time to go, I was so grateful. And I turned to the guy next to me and I said, thank you. And he's like, for what? I'm like, for practicing, sharing your energy with me. And he looked at me and goes, you crushed that, girl. What are you talking about? You crushed that. And I go, I know, right? I did. Like, it was just hilarious. So I go outside, I grab my stuff, I'm looking at the snow, the yoga instructor, who I've never seen before and never seen again, she comes up around the corner, and she says to me, Natalie, or she didn't say Natalie, she just says to me, what's up? Like, what's up? She saw I was in a daze. I was like, in a complete daze. What's going on with you? And I said, today is the best day of my life. And I'm holding back tears, and she's like, why? You love snowboarding? You love skiing? Because it was pouring down snow. Just so much snow. And I said, no, I just realized today that I'm enough. And both of us are now bawling. We're both crying. And it was a really big moment. And it's yoga. Yeah. I get it. But still, I don't know this woman. But in that moment, I felt like that she was all that I needed. Like, it was all I needed. And so I go home, and I tell the story. And I could tell that my husband wasn't really getting it. He wasn't really getting it. And in that moment, I was like, I'm not sure if this guy wants to go where I'm going. Like, I really just felt like I work for God now. Like, it was like that. Like, I work for God. I don't even know what that looks like. I don't know what that means. I don't know anything about that. But I came over me so strong. And that was that. And it was just this journey. And the journey has taken me such dark, dark, dark places. And when we talked about before, like, why don't we feel like we deserve for it to be easy? That's the question. Not like, it's supposed to be fun, like, well, why, the dark night of the soul's work is, why don't we believe that we can just be on vacation here? Why does everything have to be so hard?
Well, I think one of the things too, and that's so beautiful, thank you for sharing all that. That's, I can see how, that moment in you, in your eyes, being when you recognize that you're enough, that you don't need to have anything more added on to you, or what you're just enough, just the way you are. Like me, don't like me, I'm good. I'm gonna be all right, and this is who I am, and this beautiful art that you have, and all these, all this art that you're seeing behind us, that is Natalie's art. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. I highly recommend going there and buying something. It's really fantastic. I've gone through all of it, including conscious sculptures and pathways. There's a movement in your art that I just find so powerful. Like, you can really feel your art. And I think that is, that's a sign of really great art, is that you're able, it comes alive for you. It's not still. There's a movement that happens.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because that's kind of how I saw it happening. And it was like the art started changing for me. And I would make this piece, and I was just compelled to make it. And I didn't even know why I was making it, but it just, you just birth this thing out. And then later on, years later, I'd go back and look at it and go, oh man, I know what that was about. Like, now I get it. And I believe that that's what is perspective. So now I'm looking at the art, itself doesn't really change, right? Because it still looks the same. But when I look at it, it somehow looks different to me, because now I understand from the perspective of the me now person, not the old me who made it. For example, I'll give you an example. So I made this triptych. It was a self-portrait of myself, and I was at jury duty, And I'm not the type of person that is very comfortable judging people at all. So I'm like, because I would intuitively see the person's life, and I would say, well, his mom was so horrible, and you know, like, and he was really just in that gang for attention, and they were like a family that he didn't have, and of course he wanted to prove something, and because he loved his family, that's why he shot that guy, you know, like, and I see it just somewhere else, and so I knew why would I mean, maybe it would be good for me to be on the jury, who knows, but in the moment I wasn't feeling it, but I knew everything happens for a reason. I'm supposed to be there for a reason. So I walk outside downtown Denver, and I see these those little bumps on the sidewalk that tell blind people that they're about to go into the road.
Oh, yeah.
So I think to myself, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's signs everywhere. That means nothing to me. That bump in the road, you know, means nothing to me. But to a blind person, that means everything. That is everything. So there's signs everywhere. Those signs are everywhere. So I made this triptych of me, the shadow of myself, recognizing that this was a sign, that these are all signs. Later on, I show this work in Norfolk, in Virginia, at a gallery, and one of the pieces broke. It was a triptych. One of the pieces broke on the way there. Glass breaks, I get that, you know, but in the time you're like, I was distraught. I'm like, oh my gosh, now we have to rework the show and all this stuff. They shipped it back to me, and I couldn't deal with it because it was just too much. And then over a couple years later, I decided to glue it back together. I highlighted the cracks, and then I hung it up in my office. And one of them had like this aluminite, they call it iridized glass, and it kind of looks like rainbow. And now when I'm doing art, I'm like, oh, I got to bring in more irids because I got to bring the rainbow light. I got to bring in the healing. So now it's like this alchemy, and I'm like, and I can hear in my brain, they're like, bring in more pink because you need more divine feminine to heal that. I'm like, oh yeah, more pink, you know. And then I'm like a witch doctor, you know, like, oh, I need, you know, 2 more. Toad's breath. You know, I'm looking around for toad's breath, but for me, it's like navy blue, and it's aventurine colors, and so I just know I have to bring in more of these things, and you know, it's just like transformed into the way that I'm doing this alchemy. You know, the way that I'm using it into the glass and creating this healing. You know, through the things that I'm making. It's just been such a journey of allowing myself to just be that witch doctor and say, okay, if Spirit wants me to bring in pink because that's the color of the divine feminine, I'm just going to bring that
That's
in.
Mother Mary's. That's the divine feminine. Mother Mary, that's the, you know, what, all of that energy that is connected to pink.
Well, I got off on a tangent. What was I talking about?
We were talking about, gosh, I mean, I think we were talking about how art can impact and change us, and we were talking about your journey.
Oh, I was talking about, okay, so the piece I made. Okay.
Yes, the piece
Okay,
you
I'm
made.
like, I know I was talking about something, and then so then the piece I hung it up. So now I hung it up, and I realized, oh, the iridized glass was the final one. So one day I'm in my office, and there's this piece, it's like there's a regular one, which I think of more as like the awakening, which is, oh, okay, I recognize that there are some signs that I need to be looking out for. And so that's the first piece in this triptych. And then the second one is the one that's broken. And I realized that, wow, the next step on this journey, because I was so naive, I thought that I was just going to start working for God and everything's great and I would just be guided and I'm going to be on stage next week. And, you know, I didn't realize that I had to go through this dark night of the soul. And then the breaking of that glass was symbolic of the dark night. And I literally almost broke to the point where I realized this place can break you. I mean, for real, it can break you down to not wanting to stick around, not wanting to be on planet anymore. I took on too much. It's too much. You know, it's overwhelming. Why would I put myself through this, you know, to the point of breaking? And then I realized that, and then I saw the last piece, which I didn't even have them in that order when I first made it. I had no concept of this. I didn't know what was going on. And now I see it as like, you know, Jesus went through these stations of the cross. This was my stations of the cross. Like, this was my transformation. This is my awakening. And then from that awakened place, you have to, everything you thought you knew breaks apart. Everything you thought you were, it has to go. The old you have to, if you want to be change, if you want to have change, you have to change everything about yourself, which is everything you were. all of it, you know. And so now I look at that piece, so happy it broke. If it wouldn't have broke, you know, so it's like, now you get it. Now I see it. I'm like, oh, I was just trying to, you know, I was just trying to put in glass that moment I had, realizing there's signs all around me, and now I see it's the whole spiritual journey.
It is,
you know?
And it's beautiful. I've seen it on her website. Those is it triptograph? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's a triptych. Yeah.
Triptych. It's a triptych, and you see that middle piece, and you're talking about it, and it resonates. Anybody who's experienced that dark night of the soul, that shattering of that, where all your expectations about who you are and what you're about gets broken, and it's like spirit has to rewire you.
Exactly.
It has to rewire you. It has to reorganize you. If you've been awoken, and usually a trauma, coincidentally, is the door that opens you up to the possibility of having this transformation. And you know, it breaks down your expectations. It has you confront your own resentments, your fears, your angers, everything that comes up. I mean, and confronting our shadows is, I think, one of the hardest things for us to do as human beings, to own our own shadow, to own our own anger, to own our own betrayals, to own our own lies and deceptions and the things that we do. It's so easy to project it out into the world and to not deal with it and see it in others and put it on to others, which leads to all of the conflict and the separation and the war and all that stuff. If we can own our own shadows, and you have brilliantly in your artwork shown that through this
Triptych.
Triptych. Don't know the word. You've shown it so brilliantly in this triptych of that journey, and I think it. You know, we've only got a few minutes. Can you share just a little bit about the importance of that from your own life journey and experience?
Well, because I've been able to remember so many past lives and so many times that I have fallen into darkness, and I have remembered, I just seem to remember killing myself on a regular basis so many times, and I was just like, why do I always check out like that? Like why do all my past life experiences or intergalactic experiences or interdimensional experience, whatever you want to call them, so these visions and that are so real, and I'm like, I'm so emotional and they're so vivid that they are me. I know it's me, because I see my friends in them too, and I'm like, oh man, we did some nasty stuff, and I remember doing such dark, like things that are I can't even believe that we've done this stuff as humans. I mean, like sacrifices of children, and like we've done all this stuff. We know it. Read about it in a book.
It's in there,
right? So dark, and then when you see yourself that dark, and then when you look at other people and you know that you have done all those things, whether or not you've done them in this lifetime or not, we have done all these things, wars, horrible raping and pillaging and all of these things, and why are we doing this, and why are we doing that? And you understand duality. You're like, oh, because sometimes you have to figure out what you're not before you can figure out what you are. And
that's so true.
When you come from that place, you're like, oh, that's not me. That's not me. I don't want to be that. And that's when you have enough energy of that's not me, that you propel yourself into the fifth dimension, where that is not, where you don't even need that anymore. Now you're in the quantum. Now you're living in the quantum where love only exists. And then you say, well, it's so easy to forgive now. Because you're like, oh, that's just me before I forgave myself. That's just me before I understood why we do this, what duality looks like, what polarity looks like. And then you just move to a different place of ultimate forgiveness of self and of others, because that's you. That's just me before I took the filters off. Come here and give me a hug.
Give me a hug right now. I mean, come on. It's so fascinating. I can't believe we're almost to the end of the show. This is such a brilliant conversation.
This is what happens when you get into the quantum. Chime does not exist, and you just, it's just when you know when you know that you're doing the right thing, when you know that you're happy, when you get into that place of happiness, is when time just starts to do crazy things.
Well, and you're in the moment. And you start. It's one of the brilliant things when I was in theater is you would break time and space. If you were doing it well, and you were living in the circumstances and the imagination, and you were really there present with them, you broke time and space. You weren't even there. You don't even know. We were like, wow, 3 hours passed? Really? No. Yeah.
And that's how you know it's possible. Then you start banking that. And it's, you just keep trying, you just keep going, keep going, keep going.
What do you hope that your art communicates when people are looking at buying your art? And by the way, please, for those of you who are tuning in, go to this website.
Art Stands By Me.
Art Stands By Me is going to be a lot easier than Natalie Ventimiglia. But there it is. Art Stands By Me. She has beautiful pieces, absolutely inspirational, incredible. You can feel them. They're alive. They seem to change with you as you change looking at them. Unique pieces, all of it inspired by spirit.
By spirit.
Yeah.
By the divine, absolutely.
And her gifts and her incredible talent. And you also have, quickly, if you want to share you have a program, right? To have a...
I do. So it's a curriculum that I was kind of guided by spirit to create, which... the end of it uses art, creativity, not all my art, other people's art as well, to introduce you to concepts such as being resilient, being comfortable with change, this place is a playground, and in the very end you realize that diversity is actually what leads us into an empathetic place, which allows us to get into discernment. So the ultimate thing I want people to learn from the class is discernment. So when you don't know who to trust, when things are so confusing, like in times like this, where you really don't know who to trust, we don't agree on the facts. So
It's
then,
coming from everywhere.
right? So who do you trust? You trust yourself. So
trust yourself.
it's a class that teaches you how to trust yourself. And it's funny because I started taking the class with, I thought, well, I can't teach this class if I am not embodying and integrating this own material myself. So I started taking the class myself. And so I go back, and every time something happens, miraculously happens, then I go back and add it and see notes from the future. When I really integrated that, this is how my life changed, and this is how my life changed. And so I'm taking the class with you, and so just so you know you're not alone when you're taking it.
It's so brilliant. And I think that's such an important thing for people to learn, is to how to trust themselves again.
Yeah.
And we need to. With so much coming at us from so many different directions, we need people like you and others who are working to help bring the light back in, to shine it out so that people can know that there's hope.
Yeah.
And you bring that. And so it's...
yeah, Robin Williams is coming to mind, and his whole mission was to, help people not be so afraid.
Yeah.
And when I get afraid, to be honest with you, it's not actually, Jesus or somebody else that I'm praying to. It's Robin Williams. Because I know that he's the part of me who's been through it and could probably give me some advice.
Yeah.
When I get into a place where I don't want to continue, I'm like, Robin, what should we do? So the help is all around.
So brilliant. Folks, thank you so much for tuning into the council today. Just want to do a quick shout out to everybody here at KUHS. Henry and everybody in the back who are working behind the scenes, making all of this stuff possible here at the council. And every week they're connecting, they're wiring, they're making sure all the lights, the sound, the television, the connection, all of that stuff happens so that we can have a smooth or as smooth conversation as you possibly can. So thank you everybody in the back there, Henry and Lenny, and also thank you for tuning in wherever you are all around this world. The council is being listened to by so many people. We are KUHS, the streaming here in Denver, Colorado, all across the nation, all across the world, tuning in 6 different continents. So pretty great stuff. Before we close out, Natalie, I always ask my guests before we leave to kind of help us out with a bit of wisdom. So if you could think about from your life, one bit of wisdom, one piece of wisdom from your life experience that you would like to share with everyone, what would it be?
Well, first I think people have to figure out what is wisdom, right? So wisdom is when you have taken your experiences and the knowledge that is presented to you and you remove the emotion from it. And then it becomes just a lesson. And some of the people that I was fortunate enough to meet last week, and they were telling me some stories about themselves and some horrible things that had happened to them. And this one girl in particular, she told me a story, and I was just like, how did you recover from that? Like, for real, how did you recover? Because she's telling it to me like she's telling me what she had for lunch yesterday. And she really just said, I turned it wisdom.
Yeah.
You know, so I took
Yeah.
the emotion out of it, and I understood, you know, I forgave myself for even being in that situation, for creating this situation, like Ho'oponopono, and and I turned it into wisdom. And so in the class, we actually go through, we start with a piece of art, which is knowledge, and towards the end of that each chapter, we turn it into wisdom. So what is it that this art piece wanted to teach us? And what is it that this artist wanted you to know? So just removing the emotion and moving into unconditional love about every situation that you're in is what wisdom means. And knowing that, I think, is the first step.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for
Of
being
course,
here.
I'm so gracious, so grateful, and you've been so gracious.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Folks, thank you for tuning in today for the council and listening to this amazing woman here today. We will be back next week with another fantastic show to close out the year. We have another wonderful human being coming on to help us to get through this time. So the council is adjourned. May you all be well. May you all be free of pain and suffering. May you all be whole. God bless everyone. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.